Our object on this painting is to see the light and see how the light forms different parts of it. See how the light works on the water, see how it finds the edge of these bushes, see how it works across that deer, and then finding balance in this so that the deer has become our center of interest because it's the strongest thing in here, but see how the balance of that then works against the sort of the dark heaviness over here. I'm going to now start working on the background and work some of the details and sort of work my way forward. I don't think I'll actually finish it in one session here. Actually, I don't even really want to because we actually have another 2 sessions before the class is finished. And I'm going to just do this one class or this one painting over our 6 weeks. So let me go ahead and dive in here. We're going to start, I'll start with these hills in the back. Those should be, this green is much more muted and almost grayed out than the greens that are over here or even what's in there. Because the further away it is, the more bluish and sort of muted it is. This isn't going to be, although it's dark, it's not as dark as this little dark area over in here. And this piece in here, although it's dark, once again, it's nowhere near as dark as that. We can see that from this piece right here. We can see how dark that is, but we can see that that's even darker there. And this little piece right here is not as dark as this piece, so it's not quite as dark as this. This is darker than that. All right, so keeping that in mind, let's start at our back tree back here. I need to mix a muted green. So by a muted green, I mean we're going to take what would be a beautiful bright green, and I'm going to put some of the opposite color into it to dull it down. I can do that either by putting a brown into it or putting a red into it. And I'm going to start with just a little bit of red. Let's see what happens when we throw a little bit of red into there. Makes it more of an olive, and it needs to go a little more blue, so let's put some more ultramarine blue into there. That's starting to being about the color that I'm thinking I want. Maybe on the light side it's going to be a little more yellow, but I can throw some of that yellow into it. So let's put the dark in here first. So it's going to come underneath of this. So I'm having to paint it so that it creates this dark against the tree there. And where is my horizon line? Did I already get that too far down? I'm going to have to take my rag and try and dry it on the bottom side of that. Just take a little bit off of there, get my rag on it again. Hopefully, this rag is not 100% dry. Do it again. I've got to do it right away because it's pretty light underneath of there. And although I could lift it later, yeah, that's going to work better. Now, I'm going to drag this color out into that lighter space of that. Put a bit more of this in here, and because it felt just slightly more yellow, brown, brown. Yeah. And then let's go a little darker. Add a little more of that dark right in here. Keep it right on that horizon line. It's just a hair in front of that mountain, so it's okay if it comes just a little tiny bit. And I want to come up and under this tree just a little tiny bit more. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. And now our other, it's dark on this side, and those edges are going to really be important. And it comes down a little bit further into the water and then nice and straight across, because that far away all horizon lines are straight. This is all nice and dark at the bottom. And I've got my picture a little off to my upper right here. Just trying to get a little bit of the shape of those trees without them being too much of the same. So it's going to go up. Be a little lighter as it gets up into the top of here. Maybe I need my smallest brush, although no, maybe I don't. I sort of like what just happened there. Let's get this solid all through here. There's no sky holes coming through this. And then the darkest part of it still feels like it could be just a hair darker down here. So I'm going to drop some ultramarine blue that I've mixed into my green down in this lower part of it and just drop that in there. And somehow or other, I spilled something here. I don't like that. Let's see if we can lift just that area off and get that all the way over to the side. This feels like it still needs to be a little darker right here. So I'm going to just drop a little more dark into that. Okay, now as we work our way into here, one of the things that I really liked was that there are some trees in here. I'm mixing up some darker here, get it almost black, to do those dark tree branches in there. I now have my dark for the tree trunks made up, and a little bit more of that dark green. So I'm going to start with the tree trunks so I know where they are, and then we can work the dark green in after that with the sponge. And I need to bring this a little closer so I can really see what I'm doing. Brush needs to be just a little bit wetter. My paint has already started to dry a little tiny bit. There's some shadows that work down in through here. This is some of that darker green, darker brown, which needs to work down through here. There's some brown that works up in here. I don't want to get too detailed in this area, but we need to bring a little bit of that up in here and a little out into that area. And then it comes all the way down to the water here. And it's lighter. Yeah, oh good, that's going to show as lighter. Okay, that's starting to feel like what it should. And then there's some more tree trunks in here. That sort of come up and become part of that darker. And then up in here, I'm going to be on the back side of this a little bit darker, and then it'll be a little lighter on that front side of that. A bit of a tree trunk that runs through here. I had a cat hair float in there, and rather than touching it, I wanted to just blow it off of there. And this was a pine tree, so I'm coming in with just a little tap with my brush to get some of that feeling of it just being the little clusters of pine. And there's another one over in here. This one has got some crosses. I did this with a little loose brush before, and I'm not sure that I was totally happy with how those came out. So, you know, now we have the opportunity to maybe fix that just a little bit. And then this maybe has a trunk that goes all the way through it. It's going to come up and out of that dark area there. Maybe this trunk is a little bit darker here. And we can now take some of this green that stays light there. See what we can do about bringing some of this just a little bit darker here and up into this area. This is actually a little bit lighter green than what was there before, so it gives some of that fill look. Break that up just a wee touch, and then I'll come back in with the sponge and work some of the sponge areas. And here this tree can go a little bit darker for parts of it with just some little taps on my brush. And do I want to do that sponge? I'm gonna have to get this sponge damp, and it'll probably suck up every bit of dark paint that I made, plus some. Want it to come across this piece of grass, but I wanted to come right next to it. So we're darker without being totally dark. And Now a little bit more olive, a little less blue in it. Sap green and olive green and burnt sienna to do some of this over in here. And this still needs to go a little bit darker right in through this middle part of this. I'm adding some of my dark black brown into there, and then let's just get this darker right into this corner. But it's nice having just a little light coming out of there. This little spot here needs to be a little more yellow-green. It's light, but maybe not quite that light. Yeah, that's better. And this area, I'm just sort of dry brushing because that water goes darker in there. And a little blue into that. A little more blue-gray. I probably need the bigger brush here, but maybe not. So this water is pretty dark here, but there's a little bit of reflection right next to shore on part of it. And the shoreline has a little dark line on it. I'm going to scumble some blue, dry brush, scumble some bluish tone in here. And a little bit out into here. There's just some little feelings of wind line out here, and this is going to help make all of this feel more natural. I'm liking that. A little more feeling of pink right at the top of that. And here's that darker little cleft right here. Needs to be in that reflection. A little pink needs to be in this reflection here. Not enough water on my brush to get that there. And then it's too strong. Got to pick a little of it off, lighten it up just a little, and this is all getting pink in it. Gray, that's all the way out to that tip. Okay. Now we're going to be getting a lot darker colors coming down into that water reflection, and also along into that shore. Right at the water line, it's still brown, but it's pretty dark brown. Hopefully the paint is thick enough. If it's not thick enough, it'll just be gray. And we have another tree that comes out of here. Dark space right here. It's not 100% dark line across here because there's some little breaks where it comes in and out, but it's most of that way. And some places it goes a little higher up into those bushes. That helps separate that. And then we have to be sure that there is the dark below it in the reflection. Now, don't do that with a sponge or with my brush. Let's go medium brush. Start with this darker blue-green. So seeing some browns and yellows for, oh, that part reflected down in. Just, I want a reason that we're going to put some a little bit of brown and gold down in here, and this has to be several shades darker than what's reflected, so this is all going a little bit darker than what was up above. I'm painting sort of horizontally and vertically. And then as this comes back in here, it breaks apart. But this needs to be almost as dark as what's up there, just a little bit lighter, but almost as dark. And so this tree is supposedly this tree. And then the water has got a little bit of wind in it, so it's getting broken as it comes down. And we're ignoring that swim line that's through there because it's actually changing that reflection a little bit. And then I'm going to scumble some of this down in here. Dry brush it is another, in oil painting it's called scumbling, but in watercolor we usually refer to it as dry brush. But it's going to make that little more feeling of that wind coming through there. So all my marks are either vertical or horizontal at this point. Vertical or horizontal. And that was another tree there, so there's a little bit of a feeling of a dark trunk, that dark trunk coming in there. And now as this comes down in here, we're starting to actually see into the water. So instead of it being green when it gets down closer to the front, it's going to be brown because that's the color of the rocks underneath. And these ones too, they're going to turn into brown. And side brush it. Maybe that's a little wider there. And then down in this front, I'm going to do this as some where I've got my brush sort of moving on it, somewhere I'm leaving a little dry brush feel. And I feel like that needed to go quite a bit darker right under the nose. Get that circular feeling going there. She's got the that deer is going to stand out better having it a little darker underneath the nose and then that little light side showing better. And it's right there too. And then I have to be just a little bit careful. Much browner as it gets over in here. Although there's some little light spaces showing through, it's surprising that this water is actually darker than we think it's going to be. And some more of these wind lines coming through here. Doing this all with this brownish, I'll just add a little tiny bit more blue into it, brownish gray, and now I'm making it a little bit bluer, but I got to be careful about having this too dark. Yeah, a little more water to that because that felt a little dark there, although it can go a little darker down in here, Margaret. It can, it can, it can. Just trying to look and see what's happening with this water and how these rings of movement through here sort of move across. This whole thing of when it's up here close, and this is too active feeling here now, and I need to darken just that back there a little more. Okay. All right, so now what else here? Yeah, this is a little too light right there. It's got to be as dark or darker than what's up above. And here's a little darker piece of green. It's gone dry. A little darker piece of green there, so this needs to be a little darker right in here. And then I'm seeing some of these brownish areas sending reflections down into here. That are broken up by cross marks. This is getting very close. And none of this is any lighter than what's above. So I need to, as much as I hate to get rid of any light areas, I need to. This. None of that can be as bright as anything above. And does this need just a little more yellow in it up there? I'm also feeling like maybe we still need a little more feeling of, not that pink, sort of a pinky brown, a little more pinky brown up in here. Just sort of hold that area down a little more, feel more like groundish. And okay, I think I'm at the point when I need to think about stopping here. And you know, this is grass up here, so I have a little bit of this feeling, but let's just do a little bit more so it feels like it's coming into grass, and then I'll just take that up into that dark area. If there's more paint on the brush, more paint, wetter paint on the brush than the page, it'll come off. If the page is more paint and wetter than the brush, so the brush is a little drier, a little less paint on it, the paint will actually come off the page and onto the brush. And so you have to think about that a little bit as you're doing some of this final detail work, especially if the area is damp that you're working into, because you can be picking up paint when you don't want to if you're not careful. Some of this come back into here just a little more to make that edge a little more broken. Okay, I don't want it too finished looking, but I want enough finish. It's always this fine line between enough finish I need a skinny, yeah. Enough finish that those feel like real trees. It's two color combination here. I like that. That's changing that color a little bit. Okay, I need to stop for now. One more little place. Okay. I just wanted that little point to stick out just a tiny bit more. It was an interesting little point, and unless it was enough variation in value, it wasn't going to stand out. And same with this little spot right here. I could go just a hair darker so that it stands out. I'm going to stop at this point. The final bit will be to look at it, see what else needs to be done to finish it, but it is now, I would say, getting to be 90% done.